Hey, this is Matt Wenning at winningstrength.com, and today we're going to attack a pretty weird topic, but it's always on our minds. What's better, reps, sets, or intensity? Well, let's get to it. Okay, so starting off this video, let's start with repetition. So repetition, in my opinion, is the best way to develop hypertrophy. Meaning that repetition method, usually when I'm thinking of it, is going to be somewhere in the range of 8 reps to failure, which could be somewhere in the 25 to 35 range at an extreme rate. But the point is the repetition method is super important, meaning that you have to have a certain amount of reps in order for the volume to be enough to make any change. The next thing is that depending on what energy system you're trying to attack, right? You can't get to lactate threshold or that lactate burn. You can't really get to those types of things unless you're doing something long enough, which could be anywhere from 35, 45 seconds upwards of a minute, meaning that you're going to have a decent amount of reps to do that. So I find that reps, although have probably more function in hypertrophy, they also have some major detriments, right? If you're training under fatigue, you're not going to be able to have a lot of intensity or a lot of power. Now that becomes another issue. The next issue we have is sets. Now sets are super important too, because of one major reason that you don't hear a lot of people talk about, which is how many singles are you doing. So if I do 3 sets of 10, for example, I only got 3 singles, right? First set, I did 10 reps. The first one was a single. Second set, same thing. Third set, same thing. I only got 3 singles. But let's flip that around. What if I do 10 sets of 3? Well, now if I do 10 sets of 3, I have 10 singles. Well, if I'm a powerlifter or I'm a strength athlete that tests 1RMs, or I'm a sprinter, or I'm worried about maybe a vertical jump or something of that nature, wouldn't it seem more appropriate to get more singles in? The answer is yes. So the reps and sets are very, very heavily kind of conjoined in a situation where you might want to look at your goal. If your goal is just to be big and thick, 10 sets of 3 is not going to be really good for you. If you're more of a bodybuilder, the 3 sets of 10 might yield you a little bit more results in your area because you're going to increase sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. But there's one thing that you're not going to attack unless you're thinking about it, and that is actin and myosin hypertrophy, and that's tied into intensity. Now, what is actin and myosin hypertrophy? Well, actin and myosin hypertrophy is when the actin myosin cross-bridge chain is actually pulling on the muscle and either lowering or raising the weights. Well, as these do this with intense weights, they break off and they grow back thicker. Well, those thicknesses create actin and myosin hypertrophy, which tends to be more permanent. So my point is, let's look at some old bodybuilders, right? Let's take the pictures of Dorian Yates, for example. If we look at Dorian Yates from his prime, say in 1994 to now, he's lost roughly 100 plus pounds of muscle tissue, right? A lot of that was because a lot of it was sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. But let's take a look at Bill Casmire. You got Bill Casmire here. He's almost 70 years old. He still looks like he lifts weights. And let's take a look at him back in the past, 1982. Jack, one of the most impressive Americans to ever live. You notice the difference in how much Casmire lost and how much Dorian lost? Now, a lot of that could be drugs and supplements and lifestyle. We all get that. But some of that has to do with actin and myosin hypertrophy. Bill Casmire was a freaking maniac of strain. He could strain his ass off. Intensity matters if you want actin and myosin hypertrophy. And I strongly believe that actin and myosin hypertrophy is what we all should slightly be after because it's more permanent, right? So the 3 sets of 10 is going to create a little bit more sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. The 10 sets of 3 is going to create a little bit more speed and power if you're more of a intensive type guy, like you're worried about vertical jump and 1 rep max squats. In intensity, getting up in that 80, 90 plus percentile range, or at least 80, 90 plus % intent, is going to allow more actin and myosin hypertrophy, which is going to create some quality tissue that's probably never going to go away. So as you can see, reps, sets, and intensity all are equal. But guess what? Here's the hard part. They're all needed. So you need to do 3 sets of 10 even if you're in actin and myosin hypertrophy. You need to do higher amounts of sets than reps even if your goal is a bodybuilder. And you need to have intensity even if your goal is neither of those. Even if your goal is just to be kind of, I want to stay in good shape as I get older. Why? They attack different fibers in different ways and create different types of hypertrophy therefore going to allow you to have a more dense, usable, and transferable muscle tissue. So I hope this helped and didn't confuse too much. If you guys have any questions, join Patreon and check that out. We can answer some more of those. Watch the Hypertrophy Explained video on the YouTube channel, and download the manuals, and that will help you tremendously.